Okay. Welcome. My name is Rashida Scar. I am a librarian with Marin County Free Library. I want to welcome you to the fifth in a series, Demystifying Affordable Housing Through a Racial Justice Lens. This week we are focusing on facing the unhoused crisis. We have some wonderful guests who are here with us today, and I would like to introduce you to them. With us as guests, we have Lita Glover, Marvin Van, Lynn Mckinney, we're hoping to have join us a little later, and Yamir Reynolds. So those are all of our guests who are here. Along with me as hosts of this event are fellow MCFL librarian April Haley, and with SURJ Marin, we have Barbara Kaler, Chelsea Supowit, and those are our SURJ members who are with us here today. So I want to thank you all for joining us. Before we get started, there's a couple of little housekeeping things I would like to bring to your attention. This, as I said, is part of a series. It's part 5 of a series. The next session in the series is happening on July 16th, and it's called NIMBYism and Environmentalism, Barriers to Affordable Housing. At the end of this event, I will put a link in the chat so you can register for the next event. We have a book list that is up on the MCFL website. That's Marin County or marinlibrary.org. So feel free to check that out. I will also link to that at the end of the event. And next we're going to have Barbara. She's going to share a little bit about SURJ and what SURJ is. Take it away, Barbara.
Thank you, Rashida. My name is Barbara Kaler, and I am with SURJ Marin. SURJ stands for Showing Up for Racial Justice, and SURJ Marin is part of the national SURJ chapter that organizes white people for racial and economic justice. And at SURJ Marin, we educate, organize, and mobilize white people to act for racial justice, and we also support the missions of local Black, Indigenous, and people of color-led organizations in their work against racial oppression and disparities in Marin County. And there are 3 organizations that we partner with through financial contributions and amplifying their work. One is the Marin City Arts and Culture. Another is the Marin County Cooperation Team and the Multicultural Center of Marin. We offer workshops and events, and we have a website, and we have a newsletter, and that will also be in the afterwards in the document that Rashida is going to share. And I thank you for coming and being here with us. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Next, we're going to have Chelsea from SURJ. She's going to share our land acknowledgement and action items. Chelsea, can you get us started?
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Rashida. So land acknowledgements are a big and necessary tradition for our programs and for SURJ in general. And in this one, we're really excited to share a preview for Coming Home to the Cove, which is a 3-part series that specifically focuses on the Coast Miwok in Marin County today. So we will begin by sharing an overview of the series and then share a preview of the first episode. Across the United States, Indigenous communities are calling for sweeping revisions to stories commonly told as history. Stories that, even today, neglect and erase Indigenous peoples and serve as justification for the continued ownership of stolen Indigenous lands. This 3-part series is the multi-generational story of a Coast Miwok family's eviction from their ancestral home in Northern California, and one woman's mission to bring the living history of her family back to the land. Throughout this series, Teresa Harlan chronicles the story of her family's displacement from their homestead in a cove in Tamales Bay and shares her grassroots efforts to involve the wider community in protecting both the history and the future of this place. As she tells her family's story, Teresa makes a powerful claim. Remembering and retelling inclusive stories has the power to create a more just future. In this series, we ask, who gets to define history? In what ways is it our responsibility to ensure that a shared history is an accurate and just representation of the places we call home? And now we'll show a brief 1-minute video on the preview of the first episode. And we'll be sharing the link to the whole series in our notes for the follow-up.
Thank you so much, April, for sharing that.
Yeah.
So we will have a link to the video series at the end of this program. Finally, we're going to get to know our speakers a little bit more after we show the film, but it's time to show the film now. So Chelsea, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen. We're now going to show a film. It's a docuseries that was presented and put together by Kaiser Permanente with KTF Films. It is called The Way Home. It's 4 very short videos that we've put together. And it really discusses and looks at homelessness in California. It discusses briefly things like Project Room Key, various organizations that are currently working with homeless in our area. So we're going to show this film, and then we're going to discuss this with our participants. So we're ready to start that. So that was The Way Home. A video created in conjunction with Kaiser Permanente and KTF Films. I wanted to share some quick facts with you all about homelessness here in California, in the nation, and in Marin. So I'm going to share my screen here. So, just some brief information about homelessness. Sorry, let me. Nationally, Black and African Americans are vastly overrepresented in the unhoused demographic. They make up 40.7% of the unhoused population, despite the fact that they represent only about 12.5% of the general population. Black and African American residents make up the majority of homeless families. 48.7% of unhoused families are Black or African American, or identify as Black or African American. And members of Black and African American families are 7 times more likely than white families to spend time in homeless shelters. Latinx Americans are also overrepresented nationally at the poverty level. 28.1% are living below the poverty line. However, they are underrepresented nationally in the homeless community. They have a lower incidence of homelessness overall. Here in Marin, and we're just closing the focus in on Marin, Latinx Americans make up 19% of the unhoused population, so higher in this general area. But they make up 16% of the general population. However, proportionally, we're seeing that African Americans have a higher homeless rate because they make up 17% of the homeless population, even though they only make up 2.8% of Marin's general population. So huge discrepancy and disparity there. There is increasing evidence that not only are Black and Latin Americans disproportionately represented in the unhoused population, but they experience drastically disproportionate barriers to access to resources. There was a recent VA case study which showed there was some evidence that Black VA applicants faced unconscious bias at an increased rate, and were denied access to assistance at a much, much higher rate than their white counterparts. They just did a case study of people coming up without, the 100% correct paperwork. More often than not, white participants were given the benefit of the doubt and were given access to the resources they needed, even though they didn't have the correct paperwork. Black participants who came up with the same lack of paperwork were turned away at a greatly increased rate. And that was even higher for Black participants who had a history of substance abuse. So, we're seeing several different, biases and racism coming into play when it comes to even accessing, even when, everybody involved is homeless, they're still having trouble accessing. So, these are, ongoing issues that we're seeing at the national level and in Marin. This is just a quick graphic that really kind of allows you to see very quickly nationally what the breakdown is. So, there's obviously disparities here with, almost half of the, homeless population, a huge disproportionate amount of the homeless population being African-American, and especially in regards to, in comparison to their white counterparts. So we're seeing like a lot of really, difficult images here about how racism and homelessness are kind of combining and creating kind of the perfect storm for Black and Brown residents nationally and here in Marin. So I just wanted to give that information to you before I go into introducing our panelists who are going to share with us some of their expertise, some of their experiences, and I'm just going to dive right in. First, I have, Yamir Reynolds. Yamir, can you come onto the camera and share a little bit about yourself?
It's Yamir.
Yamir, I'm sorry, excuse me.
No problem. Hello, everyone. My name is Yamir Reynolds. I'm the founder and executive director of the Marin County Cooperation Team. A little bit about me. I'm a transplant here from New Jersey, but prior to living in California, I lived in Abu Dhabi for 5 years. I was homeless as a teenager. I left New Jersey at 18, went to college, and because of my home life in New Jersey, I vowed never to go back. So I slept on the streets of North Carolina. I ate out of trash cans, slept in cars. My brother was attending a school down there, and when I couldn't afford to go to school, I would sneak in his dorm and sleep in the bed, with him. And so, for me, this is very personal, very real. For the work that I do in Marin County, I am the only African-American man in Marin County to have the type of agency that I have. And so we work with homelessness, domestic violence victims. We have youth programming. And so for me, this is a very personal space. I know the biases that exist. I'll give you one example and then I'll shut up. Received a phone call from a young lady staying at one of the well-known shelters in Marin County. She contacted me for services. And when I pulled up, she asked that I work for the company. I said, I'm actually the executive director. And she started crying in the parking lot. It's an African-American woman. And she said, there's no one who looks like you in this county helping us and has an agency. And so it's real, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, Yamir. I really appreciate your time. Next, I want to introduce Lita Glover. Lita, you want to come on to the camera and introduce yourself? Lita, you're muted.
I'm here.
There
So my
you
name
go.
is Alexa Glover. I am a 51-year-old, you're young, African-American woman. I have been homeless. When they asked me how long I've been homeless, I said 5 years, but that was just this stretch. But when I think back to when I was growing up, this time, when the pandemic hit, I was renting a room at the time. But I was let go from my job because not let go, but put on leave because of the pandemic. And I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to continue renting this room for $1,200. So I moved and I had a horrible experience. I moved 4 times in about 2.5 months. And in about 2.5 months, because people, it seemed like they were trying to get over on people that was homeless. I had somebody to put me out and try to hit me with a rake. I've had just a whole bunch of horrific things happen. So I decided I'm just going to stay in my car. And doing that, my daughter is also homeless. Well, I'm housed now, but my daughter is still homeless, and she's homeless down in Oakland on East 12th. So I really got a chance to see the firsthand the homelessness and the just what's really going on. And I want to say that a lot of the homeless people that I saw, they're not really catching COVID because they're exposed to so much other stuff. I mean, I saw rats going in and out of the tents. You know what I mean? They're shooting dope, they're smoking. And a lot of people, and some of the people I've known, I already knew from prior, were doctors, were lawyers, were this and with that, and for whatever reason became homeless. You know what I mean? So these aren't ignorant people.
Right.
However, they were put down to this lower standard and they're living in the swallow. And so they're exposed to all this stuff. So, so the drugs that they're injecting and shooting and snorting and smoking, you know what I'm saying, can't really stand up to the COVID. Right. However, my daughter is also one of the people that's going to be put out of one of the hotels because it's like, okay, well, your time is up. She's like, what do I do now? I don't know. I was not able to get my granddaughter, because at the time I was homeless but I was renting a room. And I was told by the child, because my daughter that's out there now, with her child, and I was told because I didn't have my own place that I could not take her. And I called housing. I put myself on every type of housing list. And I explained, look, this is the only way I can get my grandbaby. Fortunately, I did have some income coming in at the time because I was working prior to COVID. However, I felt like it was more of because of my color, and had I not reacquainted with my best friend who works in the social system, human services, social system, that I would not have known anything about Marin County and the services that they had to offer because it was not been given out. I had not heard anything on the television. I had not read anything in the papers. I had not heard anything, so the information is just not really there.
Okay, so I really want to dive into that. I'm going to ask you a question specifically later on in the program. Next, I would like to introduce Lynn Mckinney. Lynn, can you come on and share a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hi.
Hi, Lynn.
Homelessness is very touching to me. Me and my husband were homeless for it's like more than 5 years. Here in Marin, getting on the resourceful one. So I like to go out and get information. When the information is useful, I pass it along because I am a recovering alcoholic addict. The only way I could keep what I have is by giving it away. We used to stay in a laundry room for a few years in Marin City. And I'm on PRCS, probation, parole, whatever. No help from them. I'm asking, what do you get the funding for? I need glasses. I need my bottom teeth, partial replaced. I need things that I was told in prison that I would get. Never did. No clothes, but they'll give you a monthly bus pass to come to their office every month. That's what they do. So we've been kicked out of the laundry room. Threatened vehicles will be towed for sleeping in the vehicle. That's called camping. Needless to say, my husband was the one that got housing this past year, but it was a long journey. Being in Marin, I left Marin, went to Sacramento, so the trailer shelter that they have out there, I did not see that staff member that was doing that video. I promise you that. Needless to say, a good program, very good program. They do supply food, give you everything that you need, everything. They don't have it in Marin though. So it's been a long journey, hurtful. Grandkids, kids need you. They want to be around us. We don't have no place for them to, the grandkids have a lot of them. Very touchy.
Yes.
With no help. I got a job.
Congrats.
I'm an IHSS provider now. Yeah, that's good.
That's
and
amazing.
I give my own. So I was able to be a live-in caretaker. She died. I cared for her 14 months. So I was housed for 14 months, but I gave up my trailer in Sacramento because she wanted me.
Right.
And I obliged her. So being an IHSS provider and not having nowhere to go after she dies, I'm told I gotta find other options.
Yeah.
Community Action Marin helped me for a little bit only because of Ida Green. I love her so much. She know I put my all into this lady. And when she helped me with Community Action Marin, then they put me in a motel 2 different times and then brought me back to Marin City and dropped me off right there on the sidewalk. So it's like, what is one to do?
Right. We're really going to talk. Oh, I'm sorry.
How does a person, because one thing about homelessness, when they think about COVID don't have nothing to do. Homelessness been here, and that itself is a disease. It will have people going from doing their best to stay on a straight and narrow to back to what they know, crime, just to survive, just for food. I give my shout out to St. Vincent's and Ritter House for what they do when they're open. That for real, it's like, how do I move forward? And when you do put your all into whatever it is that you're doing so that you don't go backwards.
Absolutely.
I know me personally, not getting it.
So we do want to talk more about that and some of the systemic things, because like you say, it's a cycle. It's a pattern that happens again and again. That's where you have folks who are chronically homeless, who are just really struggling because they're trapped in that cycle. And we would love to hear more from you. But I do want to introduce Marvin Van. Do you want to come off come onto your mic and share a little bit about who you are? I'm going to Can
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My name is Marvin Williams, and I'm 60 years old, grew up here in Marin. But I was homeless for many years because of my drug addiction and criminal activity. I just recently got out of prison. I've been out approximately a year now. And like Lynn said, you know, when you get out of prison, you know, they tell you that they have all these resources for you, but when you touch down, there's nothing available. You know, it was a good thing that I knew some people that was into the homelessness business, you know. So I was able to get help there because I went looking for it. A lot of the problems is that people don't know where to look for the help they need, and there's nobody telling them, you know. Because I've tried. I went everywhere looking for help. You know, I stayed in my car for a while. I did whatever I had to do to lay my head down. But finally, I got a job. You know, I'm a cook at Homeward Bound of Marin. So I'm employed by the shelter program now. I did stay in the shelter for 5 months, you know, working on whatever I needed to do. And I do have housing now, but I still have a lot of friends that's out there,
right?
You know, and they're in these encampments, you know, rat infested, you know, and drug infested. There's a lot of crime going on in there, and there's nowhere for people to go. I know for me, I had to really search for resources in this community. And it took a while, but I was able to break through, and I am housed now. Thank the Lord for that. But there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, you know, because what are they going to do when the pandemic is considered over? You know,
right.
Where are all these people going to go?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, we definitely wanted to look into that, and hopefully maybe touch on with your experience, with all of your experience and expertise. Hopefully we get some insight as to a path forward. So I do want to discuss that a little bit. So I'm going to start asking questions now, and I'll, you know, pick people and ask the question directly of them. So I would like to talk to Yamir. Jamir, I'm sorry. Can you share a little bit about your experience working with Marin Cooperative Team? What are some of the things that you're seeing out there as you're trying to assist people to get out of this cycle of poverty and homelessness?
The reason why I started my organization, to be frank, was the big machines that exist in Marin County were not really helping people who look like me. They were not going to homes in Golden Gate villages that, you know, if you have services and I don't have any money, how the hell am I going to get all the way to San Rafael?
Right.
Why can't you come here? And so what I did was I started using the organizations that are based in Marin City. And what a lot of people don't know is that the Marin County Cooperation Team was actually started during the pandemic. When the pandemic hit Marin City, all of the organizations who get paid to come to the Sausalito Marin City School Districts to provide services, they were nowhere to be found. Marin City had to pull together, delivering food to seniors, started a food bank. We made sure that the students who were receiving mental health services, that they were still going on. And it exposed a lot of flaws. It highlighted the mission and vision statements of a lot of organizations that's not matching up with their actions. prior to me being the founder and executive director of the Marin County Cooperation Team, I was the community school director for the Sausalito Marin City School District. So when starting the organization and being on the ground during the pandemic, during the wildfires, we were literally going to homes, and Ida Green was actually the leader of our seniors team. And we created power outage kits for seniors. We were doing rental assistance. We were helping domestic violence victims relocate, because in the pandemic, domestic violence spiked.
Yes.
Because now I'm stuck in a house with my abuser.
Right.
And I can't go anywhere. And so when you get a phone call, and I live in the East Bay, but when I got a phone call from Ida that this young woman had to leave the hospital because her abuser was coming there and she didn't have anything but the clothes on her back, I got in my car and went to Marin City and met up to provide those services. And so what I saw and what I see is, when it comes to Black people in Marin County, we're still second class, because everyone speaks about San Rafael, Nevada, and oh yeah, Marin City.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in Marin City for 3 years now. I work with everyone with Paul, Felicia, Ida, Bridge the Gap, anyone that you could think of, and we're just tired. And so I said, I'm going to create an organization for my people, and I'll come to them. If you can't come to us, I'm going to come to you. And so the need was there, because we get tired of being in spaces, and because someone else's personal biases, we can't get the help that we need. If we want a job with your organization, you more than likely will hire one, maybe two of us.
Right.
And we all know that men account for 60% of the homeless population. It's a high male count, but Black men and Black families can't go into a shelter together. So you break up the family unit.
Yeah.
And so now, counting on someone, my husband, my wife, my partner, to get me through this, you're telling me, if you want to come here, he can't come.
Right.
And it's always the Black man. And so again, I created my organization because the lack of compassion and love for African Americans in Marin County, because I'm a Black man who was homeless. So I come from a totally different dynamic.
I appreciate your perspective, because I feel like that highlights kind of both sides of it, because you've experienced it, but you've also been extending help to people who are also experiencing that intersection of poverty, homelessness, being marginally housed, and being African American, being Latina, although we do see that happening more towards more Central County with San Rafael, some of the homeless encampments there. We're hoping to capture some of this information, and we want to get a bigger picture. I just want to break out and say this event is just an entree into the issue of homelessness and poverty with the intersection of race. So we will be discussing this more in depth in future events, but thank you for sharing that. My next question I want to offer towards Letta. Letta, can you share a little bit? Like racism, there are a lot of internalized biases when it comes to perceptions of the unhoused, especially unhoused people of color. Can you unpack some of the ways that you've seen that play out in your experience?
Sure. So the way I see that play out is automatically when I say I live in Marin County, it's Marin City, the lower class area. So people think, people automatically think you're Black, you're not educated, you're black, you're dumb, you're black, you're looking for a handout. As I said, there are homeless people that are heavily educated, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, that, something happened in their lives and they ended up homeless and are of color. Now, if you were a Caucasian person, you would not be, I've seen, would not have been treated the same way as an African-American person or a Latino person. And it's sickening, I just think that, and again, I want to say that it almost seems like when it reached, when people saw, and this is not just Marin County, but, and just not homelessness, but also with the drugs. When it got too close to home for Caucasians or people with money or something like that, then time to do something. But what about us?
Right.
When it was happening just to us, it was okay.
Right.
But now that it's reaching too close to your community, to your family, to your friends, then we need to do something about that. Why? Do we not matter? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think you're hitting on a really crucial point there, because in the past, historically, there is the unconscious bias of seeing people of color as being morally deficient by default, just
Absolutely.
default. So, if folks are trapped in cycles of addiction or mental health issues, which happen because of the racism we experience, the stress of that day to day, we're finally just now starting to, have people say, oh, that's why there's this prevalence of depression and suicide and domestic abuse and substance abuse, is because folks are facing racism day in and day out. What kind of toll physically does that take on people? Mentally, for centuries, right?
For centuries.
Absolutely. And your point of, oh, now that it's in the suburbs, now it's a problem. Oh, it happened to my kid, so it's not a moral issue anymore. It's a health issue. Wasn't a health issue before, though. So these are some of the things that we're seeing, the patterns that we've kind of seen. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I feel like we should unpack that some more. But I'm just going to be bouncing around, and so I'll come back to some of those issues.
Can I say something to
Please
what Letta
do.
said?
Okay.
Please.
And really listening to it, like, when we do walk in the office and we do ask for help, they look down on us, and they never give us the benefit of the doubt, or it's, let me go save these Black people because they can't save themselves. As long as they don't come in our neighborhood, we'll continue to help you. But as soon as you start encroaching where they live at, then it's a problem.
Right.
And I see it so much, and I experience it so much. And even being in spaces where people question my education, because I have an organization, and I tell them, like, I grew up gang banging, I was homeless, but I have a master's degree, and I'm a doctoral candidate too. So however you feel about this skin is going to show. And they have people, when they're doing enrollment, who think they're better than the person that they're supposed to be serving.
Right.
And so they bring their own biases in there when they, if Mr. Marvin goes in, or Letta goes in, or Lynn goes in, and the person have their own biases, they're not even giving them a chance before they even sit down.
Yep.
And so, I really wanted to, to really add on to what Letta said, because they still think this skin, or people in this skin, is not intelligent. And if we want to be technical, we are the creators of math, science, and everything else that you can think of.
Hello.
So, so I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you,
Yes,
Letta.
absolutely. And, and here's the interesting part, the VA case study that I mentioned, they actually did kind of a secret shopper where they had actors go in to VA hospitals around the country. One was a white homeless veteran, one was a white male homeless veteran, one was a white female homeless veteran, and then they had Black male homeless veterans, actors, going in, and each of them had the same missing paperwork. They found that the African-American males encountered barriers to access to help. 57% of the time they got a no. Sorry, you don't have the right paperwork. White males, 8%. White females, 11%. So when we talk about the discrepancies of racial bias, it's orders of magnitude as far as who is getting the help. Who, even when you're on that path and you're trying to get out of this cycle of poverty, the help, the hand up, is just extended to some and not to others more often than not. So like what you're saying really does play out. The next question I want to ask is, and I think Marvin, I want to ask you this question. Why do you think, Marvin, it is important for individuals and for collective sharing of these stories? So, we have a group of African-American people here. We are sharing stories. Y'all are telling us about what you've seen, what you've experienced. Why do you think that that is important in spaces like this? Oh, you're muted.
I think it's important because of the fact that we see somebody with our color or that looks something like us with information or have information to give, and it makes it easier for us to put ourselves out there to at least go and look for it.
The network.
Yes, because I feel if I didn't see anybody that looked like me and gave me the information I needed, I think it's a trick sometimes. They trying to trick me some kind of way. So I would like, to see more African Americans in positions where they can offer the services that we need. There's a lot of people that's afraid, because they're on drugs or mental health issues or whatever the case may be. And they're afraid to go to all the white places, and deal with these white people.
Yes.
Just out of fear of being rejected. I've been rejected all my life for shit.
Absolutely.
My friends. And
we're keeping it real.
Yeah. So I think it's very important that we have this kind of format for people to see and realize that there are some people of color that are intelligent enough to be able to provide services and information that's very well needed.
And I think you're bringing up a good point there, because when we talk about systemic racism, we think of it as like a social ill, like, oh, this is a bad thing that happens in society. But the key word there is system. So when you have people who are trying to get out of a homeless situation, they're approaching a system that wasn't built for them. Right. They're approaching a system of even the system we have in place to help people. It's not made for them. It's not made to help people of color. When we were putting this program together, we were trying very hard to bring people in who can talk authoritatively about this. We're disconnected from a lot of people. So sharing stories, gathering together, sharing stories, sharing resources, learning about where people are and how they got there, I think is part of breaking out of those and creating new systems for getting help. And I appreciate the work that Yamir is doing, because I feel like he is creating new systems that are made for people. Lynn, I want to ask you this next question. Temporary actions to support people experiencing homelessness amid the pandemic revealed that we have a way to end this crisis. So we tried some things. We very quickly got some people into rooms. Who got into rooms, we can discuss that. Who are still in rooms, we can discuss that. How can communities take these how do you think we can take these emergency measures and make them permanent? What would you like to see, Lynn? That's what I would like to know.
I would like to see them help. If you're gonna help, you gotta help all. You can't just help one race and think that, oh, well, you have a background, a past to yourself. You've been in jail, prison.
Right.
I'm speaking for myself. Gotta put it back on me. Oh, and then, you know, so you've done drugs and alcohol, so you don't fit the criteria.
Right, right.
But I just seen this white lady in jail. So how does she fit the criteria versus me?
Right.
I don't get that. Like, if you're gonna help, you gotta help everybody. God helps everyone. God doesn't pick a skin color. Not one person ranked more than the other person. Because if that's the case, you're being biased, you need to step down. Because otherwise, like me, I was supposed to have been on PRCS last year because I got a speeding ticket for taking my daughter to the hospital. Because she was having early labor with twins at 3 months pregnant. And they've been going on and on and on since last year. And so it's like, it makes it really hard.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's challenging I'm not going to say it's hard. It's very challenging. Very, very challenging. Needless to say, I still believe in God. I'm believing more in myself.
Good.
Baby steps. But I don't have the support that I need to move forward.
Absolutely.
Because I need my own housing. I need mental health help. The Access team have not helped me. PRCS has not helped me. And these are major people that are supposed to help me continue to move forward. So the biasness is really, it's still here. And I face it all the time. I can't say that about Ritter House, and I can't say that about St. Vincent. I love Felicia too, because if it was Felicia, she helped me get wrote the check for get my fingerprints to be an IHSS provider.
Right.
So, and I love Royce. Royce was my spiritual mother as a kid growing up in Marin City.
We had Royce on.
When you said there's something about Marin, huh?
We had Royce on a previous event. She's a treasure. She's a queen. We love Royce here.
I love her always. Yeah, so it's like I've never even seen Mr. Reynolds because I'm not a resident in Marin City. I can't get the Marin City support. I mean, I can get the support, but I can't get the funding for anything. Lynn, so it's like,
yes, you can.
All right, we're making connections.
All right, so listen, and we can get back on it. Yeah. Listen, I will give you my contact information, and you can come, or I'll come to you, and I'll give you your answer and your help on the spot. You don't have to wait 2 to 3 weeks or anything like that, because I'm the boss.
Okay.
So it begins and ends with me. So my office is in Sausalito, and if you know Shannon Bynum, I hire Shannon Bynum. If you know Puff, I hired Puff as well. So I've been providing jobs to the people in Marin City and providing services. So please, let's connect.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Because there's a lot of things that I know I have a lot to give. I know a lot of things, and there's a lot of things that need to be said that the world needs to know, because a lot of these places that get the funding, like PRCS, what are you guys doing with the money? because you haven't helped me. I know people that you have helped, and they're not even my same. They're not even African American. They're not Latinos, but they're Caucasian. But and it's like, why? Why not help me too? Give me a chance. I know I can continue to move forward. Give me a chance. I got grandchildren that want to spend time with their grandma, and I like cooking. I like being clean. I like doing certain things. And when you don't have your own place, you can't do exactly how you want to do.
So what I want to do. So what your statement is making me want to ask another question, and thank you, Chelsea, sent me this question, because I think before we open it up to questions from our audience, I want to ask each of you this question. What is your wish list? What would help look like for folks experiencing homelessness, especially Black, Brown, Latina folks? What would that look like? Marvin, can you start us off? Marvin, you're muted. There you go.
Can you hear me? Okay. I think for me, it looks like information. If I'm provided the information I need, then I can go out and do the work to get it for myself. But it's so hard to get information because I think people get afraid of me. Hardened criminal coming out of prison. And I'm pretty direct when I go after something. I want to see the head person or whatever. And a lot of times I'm not afforded that, accommodation. So for me, it would be, just readily available information.
Absolutely. That's a great answer. So information and the ability to share it quickly so that the people who can start to take those steps to help themselves can start in that process.
Right.
Lita, I want to ask you that same question next. Letta, what would real, true help for people of color experiencing homelessness, or anybody experiencing homelessness, but especially people of color, look like to you?
Well, what it would look like to me is first going to the base and finding out if there are barriers, such as knowing if they can read, if they can write, if they actually understand, the information that they're given.
Yes.
Because if you don't understand the information that you're given, you're like, and when that person walks away, you're left dumbfounded, not, left no better than you was before they came. So getting to the root of, do this person need some type of education around, reading and writing? Does this person have a learning disability? Does this person need mental health? You know what I mean? Because if they can't understand or can't comprehend, then it's no use. That first, that is number one. Number two is giving equal opportunities. They say it's equal opportunities, but it is not. It is not. I can go on and on and on about this, but I'm just going to say, I've seen so many times where, and even with myself, I'm 4'11" and a half. I'm giving myself a half, where I have been told that I was unapproachable, that I was this and I was that. Why? Because I'm Black. But you have a 6-foot white girl coming at you with the same issue, same problem, but you can help her, but you want to help, you can't help me. You're going to send me to the back of the line because I'm unapproachable. Yes, you're damn right. I'm not I'm unapproachable, but I'm angry because first I waited in this long line. And then when I finally got up to you and I presented myself to you, and that I'm not ignorant, and you hear this, you find some type of reason. So I want to just be given equal opportunities. But first and foremost, like I said before, find out if they are actually understanding what you're saying to them, what's being presented to them, what's the next step that they need to do. Because that's like giving information to a monkey. You know what I mean? He don't know what to do with it. It's a piece of paper.
Right. So I'm
Yeah.
hearing two things from you. I'm hearing you want to, like, there needs to be better triage at the first point of contact.
Absolutely.
Where can you understand this? It's not just like throwing leaflets at people's faces. Can you read? Do you have, you know, a birth certificate? Do you have like the paperwork to like start to access some of these services? So better triage at the first point of contact. And more than that, the people who are doing it, one, preferably be people of color, who have experienced this, who know the system from both sides, the wrong side, the bad side, and from the side of being able to offer some help, and know how to kind of get around some of those barriers that are built into the system. And if you do have somebody who is Caucasian, who is helping with some of these issues, are they vetted? Are they trained? Have they been tested in working with people of color? Are they familiar with the unique issues and histories that have created this problem for people of color? So I'm hearing all of those things from you. I think that's a great breakdown. Lynn, I'm going to ask you the same question. What would real help look like for people experiencing homelessness, especially Black folks, people of color?
It has to be, for me, I would be more motivated to receiving information from another person with my race, or just someone that I knew that cared, coming back to the street.
Okay.
People have to hear it. A lot of people are not going to go to their offices for fear they might have a warrant or they stink. I feel like if I'm a motivational speaker, I need to go back to the streets. From the streets I came from, the streets, I need to go back and give my experience, strength, and hope so that people can have some type of something that can motivate them to change themselves. A lot of people feel like that people don't care, because I feel like that. I mean, I sometimes have to sleep in my car. You know, I'm in limbo of things in my life that I'm not willing to go all the way back where I came from. But I will go back to the streets, and as I get information, I'll pass it along. But people need to hear that. They need to hear it, and without going to the office. The different offices, because it's like, we don't want you coming up in here. Or no, I'm sorry, this position is filled, or because of you, the way you look, you know, or you might not smell so fresh. You know, I don't know. It's just, people need to see someone that's been where they are to come back and help them, because they need to hear something. Not, you know, you smell bad, or, oh no, I'm sorry, this and that. But guess what? From the dirt I came, from the dirt I go back.
And, you know, that is, I think, here's what I'm hearing you saying, and is that we need compassionate guides for people who are struggling. So people who are familiar with it, they're compassionate to it. Lynn, I hear you putting that on yourself, and maybe one day when you are, you know, up and running and ready to go, you will have that ability. But, you know, we need to acknowledge that being homeless is traumatic. So you have you need to recover from that trauma before you're able to be that compassionate guide. But maybe there's somebody who's a little bit further along who can be that compassionate guide. So
there always is.
They
just need to know.
We need more of that.
They need to know that, look, we need to go back to the streets, you know what I mean? Because people are not going to come to the offices. They're not. I'm just saying. They really are not. You know, they need people that remember where they was before they are where they are. Like Mr. Reynolds was saying, he was homeless. People need to help. People need to know that. But you got to go to the streets for them to hear that.
Okay.
They're not gonna go to no office, especially not in Sausalito being Black. I'm gonna
Right.
tell you that now. They'll be like, oh, what are they doing?
100%.
They're suspicious. You know what I mean?
100%.
I got
Yes.
It's crazy, but that's what they do.
And that, so that's what I'm hearing. So far from Marvin, we heard people need access to information. From Lita, we're hearing that we need people being vetted, who are reaching out to people, but we also need, at the point of contact, more connection, more good triage of people. Where are you at? Do you have the paperwork? But more than that, can you read the paperwork? Do you have the information? How can I get you the information? So having that information, and then from you, Lynn, I'm hearing we need compassionate guides who have experience with being homeless and the unique traumas that come from that. So Yamir, I'm going to ask you the same question. What would real help look like for people experiencing homelessness, especially people of color, Black people especially?
I'm going to add to what Letta said. The foundational services are important, but also the follow through. Oftentimes in these spaces, you know, we assume like, hey, if we just get you a place to live, then you'll be okay. But I may be struggling with some things. You know, I may not be ready to move into that position. What do you have in place to support me to be successful, even after the intake interview is over with? For me, you know, just listening to, you know, to everyone, I'm just reminded, like Lynn said, coming from the streets, and I'll be transparent in any space that I'm in. I sold drugs at 13. They took me to the juvenile hall for a Scared Straight program, but I knew everybody in there, and they told me to go sit on the bus because I was a distraction. You know, I sold drugs to put myself through college. You know, and I know what it's like to be looked at differently, but I also know what it's like not to forget where I came from.
Yes.
And so I do have that compassionate lens. And I'll give you, I don't know if you all maybe read this in the press. I was helping out the Sausalito encampment. When that big flood hit, I arranged to send socks and underwear and everything else there. But when I got on the ground there, I was called a nigger. I was a token and everything else. So it didn't matter if I was there to help. The only thing that they saw was this skin, and I turned down the contract because I'd be damned if I be in a space and I'm being disrespected and I'm helping you. And so even when you're helping, racism is still there.
Yes.
So imagine getting on a bus and going to a building, and just because someone has a job and you don't, and they're racist, they're not going to spend enough time with you to really get to know you.
Yeah.
They're not going to pour into your situation. And so having the foundational services, but with the follow through, I know that anyone who comes through my agency, we follow up monthly. And I want to highlight this. I know I speak about helping, you know, my people, but in my office, I had a white woman who was an attorney who's homeless, sleeping in a car with her son.
Wow.
And I helped her right there on the spot. I said, you don't have to go anywhere. Or a Latinx family with a woman who has a special needs child, and they were homeless, and we managed to find them a place and get their apartment fully furnished.
Yes.
You know, and I can say that because I'm transparent. As it pertains to Marin City, we started a youth academy for the youth during the pandemic in an internship program, and created jobs and donated almost $60,000 in rental assistance and energy assistance to Marin City by itself. And we don't get big funding. I don't make a lot of money at all. I did this job 2 years for free. But because I believed in really wanting to see, and I'll say Marin City, I want Marin City to be Wakanda. I want it to be its own economic situation to where we don't have to come to y'all. Y'all got to come to us for services. And what most people don't know is that the Marin County Cooperation Team was founded in Marin City, and it's been highlighted as one of the top social innovation organizations in the world. That's happening in an all-Black place in Marin City.
Right.
So for whoever, so again, for me, having the foundational services and the follow-through is one of the things that I wish for.
Thank you so much. So what I'm hearing you say is that you would like to see, one, everyone treated in the same way. The way you reach out, you will always extend a hand regardless of race, creed, color. And you would like to see that happening across the board with not just Marin Cooperative Team. Every organization that is meant to help homelessness should be extending that same equal opportunity hand of welcome and assistance. And more than that, you're saying about support. You want there to be support for people who may not be ready to move into a permanent position. Maybe they need somebody to help them get on medication before they get into a house, because otherwise they're just going to lose it, because they're going to have a schizophrenic episode and maybe get thrown out again or get arrested. So there needs to be more scaffolded support so people can stay and be set up for success instead of set up for failure. So I appreciate the points that you're making. Thank you to all of our guests who have shared with us today. We're going to open up the chat for questions. If people have questions, you can go ahead and put those questions into chat, and we will be answering those as they come in. And while people are doing that, I am going to put in the resources that I mentioned before. We have several different book lists. I also put Marin County Cooperative Team's website on there. I encourage everyone to check it out, support. For those of us who are joining us through the recorded video, I'll also have that information available in the details of the video. Do you have a question in the chat? So there's a question about why there are no Latino panelists. When we formulate these events, we look at our immediate contact list. So these are people that we've worked with before, people we know. When we were putting this event together, we used our immediate contacts. And then we asked those contacts who accepted the invitation to the event, who do you know that you would like to see on this panel? And so that's how we formulated who ended up on the panel. We try to pull from different sources. We've had the Canal Alliance on previous events. We've had the one of the woman from the Ritter Center, who is also Latina. And so we try to include everyone, but when we're formulating these events, we really do try to have people say, you know, bring along their contacts. Who do you know who would like to be, you think would be good for this panel? So, you know, that's how we formulate that. Is Project Home Key still happening anywhere in California? Is it now totally over? Project Home Key is not. Well, Project Home Key is still an operation in California. Some cities, counties, and this is part of the problem, I think, as I was doing research for this event, it's too jurisdictional. It needs to be a state of a California thing where they transition from Project Room Key to Project Home Key. So Project Home Key is starting now, where they're trying to get people from the hotels to permanent housing, but it is still too entirely dependent on city jurisdictions, county jurisdictions. If you have pushback from landlords and from individuals, not in my backyard, that kind of attitude, then they're running into some roadblocks there with having Project Room Key turn into Project Home Key. So that's an answer for that question. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. I appreciate your time. We are at time. I appreciate the work that you've done in bringing these stories, bringing this, your expertise, your experience to this event. And we hope to see you all soon at our next event on July 19th. Link for that in the details or in chat. Thank you. And have a good night. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.